I think the natural world's pretty amazing how resilient it is. But at a certain point in time, if we winnow it away on every edge, I think its resilience just cannot keep up. And so we just need to be aware of that before it's too late.
How's it going, y'all? My name is Justin, and welcome back to The Circuit, where we have conversations with local thought leaders who work in the nonprofit space about what is working well in their field. Today, I am joined by Samantha Look, who is the Executive Director of the Vineyard Conservation Society. Welcome, Samantha. Thanks for sitting down today.
Thank you so much for inviting
I'm,
me.
I'm excited to get into this. I know that this topic of climate and conservation can be one that is intimidating. And for me personally, I know a little bit overwhelming. So I'm excited to break it down a little bit and hopefully leave with some points that make us feel inspired moving forward.
Great.
I'd love to just start with you and what your background is. Have you always been in the nonprofit space, or is this something that you found yourself in more recently?
No, I haven't always been in the nonprofit space. I grew up on the vineyard, and when I was in college, I volunteered for Sheriff's Meadow a little bit, and I worked for trustees. So I did have that experience, but those were pretty, the trustees was just a summer job, and Sheriff's Meadow was a very small little volunteer situation. But when I came back from college, I actually started a horse farm here on the vineyard.
Very
So
cool.
that was the space I was in for a little over a decade. And right around the time that I was sort of transitioning out of that, I was actually asked to join VCS's board. And that was my beginning with them. It was the first time I'd served on a board. I always was very committed and concerned about the vineyard as a natural place, and starting as a little person and having sort of a long arc of seeing one place over time and seeing change. And I think actually the horses tie into it as well. I had a lot of mobility and ability to explore because of the horses that I had throughout my life. And so I just had such a strong sense of place, of knowing what felt to me as a kid like wild spaces that just seemed so full of power and importance. And as I saw those places start to disappear and change, that really drove what I wanted to do for work. It's what I studied in college, and among other things. And so I was really excited to come back to this through VCS.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about that change that you've seen over the course of your lifetime? Are there things that you've really noticed in terms of shifts in the natural landscape or the weather maybe?
My sense of the vineyard growing up was of a very rural place. To me, it feels very suburban at this point. Thanks to many organizations, VCS and all of our colleagues, we are so fortunate that we have a lot of conservation land here. But it felt more, I worry that those places are becoming more isolated, more like parks amidst our suburban landscape, as opposed to in a continuum of healthy habitat that moves from somebody's backfields to a piece of land that was conserved to a woodland that no one, now I feel like those fields are slowly becoming houses, and same for the woods. And I think the natural world's pretty amazing how resilient it is. But at a certain point in time, if we winnow it away on every edge, I think its resilience just cannot keep up. And so we just need to be aware of that before it's too late. Things are hotter. It's more unusual to have lots and lots of snow. I remember, this is like the classic when I was little, but I remember when I was little walking across Vineyard Haven Harbor because it was frozen solid, and sitting on the rails of boats just out in the harbor with my parents. It's hard to imagine that now. So yes, I also think one of the things that's changed most dramatically for me is the kind of protectiveness of space. Like whether it was held in conservation or held privately when I was a little kid, I felt like it was just the vineyard. It was this place unto its own, and that we all experienced in our individual ways. And the ability to sort of cross through someone's backyard or set up a picnic with your family on a Sunday afternoon and on someone's hill that, obviously wasn't right outside their windows, but was very much my experience of how I grew up here. And as we've developed it further, so we're sort of on top of each other more, and more powerfully, I think, as the value of real estate here has become such, so astronomical, and so it's so precious. There's a sense of like protectiveness of what is mine that I feel very aware of. I will absolutely admit that my perspective has changed from being a child to an adult as well. And so you're sort of somewhat oblivious as a child to those sorts of property issues. But I do really think it's a big fundamental change in the nature of the island. And that is one of the things that scares me the most, is the commodification of this place, and the extreme value of it. How do conservation interests keep up when the real estate values are, just astronomical?
Do you think it's something that we start to slow down? Is it something that we start to bring awareness to? Is it something that we need to pass legislation about?
All of the above.
Yeah.
And that you really just sort of summarized VCS's role in this. Is we are always trying to bring awareness to what the environmental issues are that we're faced with, whether it's waste, whether it's the health of the ponds, whether it's just loss of habitat writ large, climate change. And so building an educated community around these issues, looking for the places where we do need regulatory change. And we are a very broad organization. So a number of years ago, we worked really hard on single-use plastic reduction and brought the plastic bag bans to the towns, and then supported the students at the West Tisbury School when they campaigned on the plastic bottle ban. And then more recently, we helped the town of West Tisbury with its big house bylaw. And so I think it's really, really important for us to be aware of how powerfully we can make choices as a community and put really, weight behind them by turning them into a regulation. And I think we need these moments to feel like, yeah, we can do this. Look at how we're making this change. Look at how we've come together around something to make a change. I think that's the other piece of this work that has so much opportunity in my mind, is as difficult as it is to look at something like climate change, the opportunity for how that, should we choose it, should we take it and make use of it, the opportunity of how that can create community and bring us together around something, I think is huge, and is the silver lining that I hope we see and use and realize, not use, but realize the opportunity there.
The word advocacy to me, and obviously it's so important, but I think it can be like broad sometimes, right? Of like, what does advocacy mean, and what do you want the result of that advocacy to be? Is that an individual action thing? Is that a community support thing? Is that going to, again, legislation on that level?
And again, it's probably all of the above.
Right.
I mean, as far as how VCS sees its advocacy role, I sort of see it on the more technical side, as far as helping to make sure that as a community we're aware of these issues, we know what's behind them and how they connect, and how they connect to us personally, and how they connect to our neighbors, and then growing out of that is maybe, okay, how does that then turn into choices or regulations or directions, land use choices, planning choices we want to make as a community. And then the other side of advocacy to me is more, I guess, the inspirational side, and the building, fostering an ethic of sort of sense of place, pride in the island as this beautiful natural place that we are so fortunate to get to be a part of, and feeling like we're providing places and events and opportunities that bring people together around that sense, because that's probably what drives my connection to this work, is having had that opportunity to know this place, to have parents that were constantly, reading things from books about spirituality and nature, and really fostering that connection and awe, like what we all, like, I feel like what we gain in our lives from living in a world where you can stop and feel awe, and that can come from a whole variety of sources. It doesn't have to be nature, but I think that's a powerful one. And so that's the other side of advocacy in my mind, is and then putting those two together, because I think the land ethic, the connection to place, the connection to each other around those issues helps us make thoughtful decisions and regulatory change. And so they really, to me, are just this braid that's constantly being woven.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what was really powerful that you talked about was really intertwining the inner feelings that I have that are rooted in a connection to place with my motivation to act upon that, right? Like standing on the beach at Lucy or taking a walk on one of the land bank trails and just feeling that like awe of place and feeling so held and connected to it. If I'm close to that, then I think I have more motivation to actually be a part of something that can work to protect it and can work to prevent that becoming less wild and less of a place. So I love that link between, yeah, feeling it in your bones and in your soul to actually what you can do about that. And here on the island, we're such obviously an isolated little place, but do you see the work that's happening here as relating to the greater global climate conversation at all?
Yes, I think that I think a couple different things about that. One, I think that global climate work is each of us individually getting at it. And so it's all linked. And that's how we get it done. And then two, I think we are an incredibly unique spot on the island. I mean, one, we are this little tiny microcosm of choices and planning and having a long view. And I think that we have the potential to really be an example, actually, for, how a community did the hard work and really sat together, even though everyone's not going to always agree about everything, and figured out how to make sure we have a bright future, and make sure all voices are included in that. And so I think there's a great opportunity there. And then I think because of the nature of the spotlight that's on this community, and the diversity of people from all sorts of corners of the world who are in large part in a lot of seats of power or influence or money, who come here and hear what's happening here, we have this incredible opportunity to sort of be an incubator, to send the seeds of what's happening here out with people who are in positions to actually bring that into bigger discussions, bigger realms, whether that be national or international. And so that to me is a massive opportunity.
Wow, you just created that link for me that I think I had all the pieces of, but hadn't totally put together. Of one, I agree with you. I think because of the small community-based nature of the island, we really have an opportunity to actually move things forward and actually get shit done, like what we've seen with the plastic ban amongst the other work that you've done. But also, largely around the summer community coming in, you're so right. It is people who are in places to make decisions, both for large businesses and in the government. And if we can be an example, and if we can show that, hey, community coming together, having clear objectives, creating clear boundaries, and actually moving something all the way to the finish line can be done, that could be an incredible opportunity to show how if it can happen here on this small little isolated island, then it can actually happen in other places. So VCS is an organization that is doing a lot of different things. And I'd love to hear from you just from the point of view of how people can get involved in that. What kind of programs and opportunities are there right now for those on the island?
So we have a winter walks program. Once a month, we gather in a variety of different spots and hold a walk all together. This year, we have a theme actually that ties those walks together, which is just sort of visiting various ponds on the island and trying to shine a spotlight on some of the work that you guys are doing at Circuit Arts with the health and stewardship of our coastal ponds. And so we love to have people join us, and it's a great opportunity to find new places maybe that you haven't been to before on the island, and learn a little bit along the way. Our annual Earth Day beach cleanup has been a big event that we've done for over 30 years, all over the island. And now, as a outgrowth from that, we have a Beach Befrienders program, which is a monthly beach cleanup. Again, it's casual. Revolves different locations throughout the towns on the island. It's just a quick drop in, drop out, help clean a beach, see who's there, opportunity to build community around this issue. We have the high school and middle school art and writing contest. So that's obviously a specific sector of the community because it's students. One of the sort of initiatives that we are working on right now is our Vineyard Lawns program. And so that people can engage with that in a couple different ways. One is we are sort of touring that around to libraries and also to neighborhood associations, homeowner groups, actually really any group I would go talk to just because we're trying to get the word out there. So, and either if folks want to reach out to us and host us to come talk about that program, or look for those dates at the libraries. And then the other side of participating in that is thinking about what you can do in your own backyard to help foster healthy ecology and habitat. And that is one of the things that we're thinking about with our land work is, yes, absolutely very focused on getting land into sort of protected status, but then all of the pieces of land that we each steward in our own backyards, that makes up such a big part of our land space that how can we steward that in a way that thinks of that as not separate from the sort of protected land, but this patchwork quilt that is additional space for habitat to thrive in. And so we have great colleagues also. Biodiversity works with their Natural Neighbors program, Poly Hill Arboretum with all of the education they're doing around native plants. And then we're really focused on lawns and what we're putting into our lawns, especially fertilizer. And then again, that ties back to the ponds, how we're seeing that bear out. I mean, I think one of the things with environmental issues is oftentimes, at least in a community like ours, where we are, it's very affluent, we are somewhat buttressed or buffered from a lot of the frontline impacts of environmental issues. I mean, climate change and weather, that's different. But as far as we're not living right next to massive landfills or things like that. And so I think it can be sometimes easy to disconnect what we're doing to how we're seeing that bear out in the environment. The ponds, to me, are a very important opportunity for our community to make that connection, like how we're using fertilizer, how we're making land use choices, how we're developing the island, what we see happening in our ponds as far as their failing health, how those places, have importance in their own right for all of the creatures that live there, but then also what they mean to us, whether that's a economic revenue source through shellfishing, through tourism, from people recreating on the pond, whether it's a place that you just love to visit. I think that is just so important for us to cause, effect. Okay, what are we going to do about it? So Vineyard Lawns is connected to all of that. So that's another opportunity. We are an ongoing resource for homeowners who are interested in conservation, if they're curious about having conservation restriction or agricultural preservation restriction or what their options are, we are an information source to help facilitate that thinking. And I'm sure I'm forgetting, our Take Back the Tap. We have a water bottle refill station network around the island, which is trying to support our single-use plastic reduction. So people thinking about how they can bring their own water bottle, have their own, reusable mug, and all of the ways that we can reduce our sort of disposable consumer lifestyle. That is something that we're always trying to foster.
VCS is really a way for people to engage with climate action and conservation and taking an issue that is big and scary and intimidating. And all of those are ways for people to take one step towards action. So it sounds like by really engaging with you and hitting you up and going to a beach cleanup or just calling for more information can be a way for people to kind of step through that barrier of how do I engage with this big thing. Well, thank you very much for hopping into the circuit. This was an awesome conversation, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And hopefully this can be a platform for y'all to get your message out there more. And I look forward to the next one. So
thanks
for coming
in.
Yeah.